Where and when were each of you born?
I was born in San Francisco in 1954, July 6th, 1954.
So you're Cancer.
I am.
Jerry?
And I was born October 3rd, 1950, in Jersey City, New Jersey.
So you're Libra.
Libra, yes.
The sensitive, nice combination, Libra and Cancer.
And both of our rising signs are in Scorpio, and my moon is in Libra, and his sun is in Cancer.
My rising is Cancer, my moon is Libra. We're all connected.
Yes, there you go.
So how long have you been together as a couple?
Together as a couple? 27 years. Married 24 years.
Mm-hmm. And what I wanted to start by asking you, Adrienne, as a therapist, you have seen many relationships through the years. And I wondered if you see any patterns in terms of what gets people in trouble. What are the kind of common mistakes, if you want to call them that couples make?
Probably, the biggest trouble that couples get into is lack of good communication skills. People don't get what they want, and they don't know how to communicate that to their partner.
So what do you teach them? Active listening, sounds like you're feeling da-da-da because da-da-da.
I teach a variety of real basic skills, but reflective listening and just I do something called dyad communication with my couples, which is I'll have them pick an issue that's going on in their life, like maybe sex or whatever, and then they'll give a statement to each other. Tell me what sex is. And so if you and I were partners, I would say to you, tell me what sex is. And then you would talk for 5 minutes about what sex is. And all I do is listen. I keep my mouth shut. I don't nod my head. I don't, do anything but just listen. And as I say, listen with an open heart and an open mind. Keep eye contact and just listen. And then after 5 minutes would go by, I would say thank you. And then you would do the same for me. Tell me what sex is, and I would do it. And so I would go back. I teach them that, and then they go home and practice it on their own, along with I statements and reflective listening and that type of stuff.
Well, with the dyad, is there any resolution? So let's say I say, well, I need to have sex every day. And you say, well, for me, sex is on special occasions. So how do we resolve that?
Well, it's amazing that the point is not to come up with a resolution, but by listening and offering that gift of listening and understanding. As I tell my couples, it's not about thinking your partner's right or that you have to come up with an answer. In fact, I tell them when they're first learning this and learning reflective listening, if your partner in the middle of talking starts asking you questions, you just listen to them. You don't answer them because, that's not your role right now. And so, down the line, you may need to come to some agreements, but by communicating well, by listening well, it's about having goodwill for one another. And when couples start getting back, if they're in a bad place and they get back, once you get them back to feeling good about their partner and wanting to create goodwill, then they're more likely to want to come up with a solution. Well, what can I do for you? What can we do here so both of us are happy? What can I do? What can we do that, will make both of us feel better about whatever's going on? So it's just really getting goodwill back rather than, you don't start with trying to
problem solve.
Yeah, learning good communication skills is not about problem solving. Down the line, you can start problem solving, but they have to learn to communicate well first.
Mm-mm. Can you turn the computer? Yeah, that's better. Great. Jerry, what about that? What have you seen with your friends who are couples over the years? What do you see from a male point of view that inhibits their happiness as a couple?
Well, I have a thing right now we're doing through the COVID where called the coffee clatch, where it's like five of us gentlemen get together on like a Wednesday morning, and we have coffee and we gab basically, and we notice that every one of us around the coffee clatch were in a long-term relationship. So there's five guys, and some of these guys, one of these guys have been with his partner for 40 years, another one for, that long or 35 years. So it was just something to be with these guys who were in kind of the same situation as me, that in a long-term relationship. And one of the things that came up is, maintaining a friendship with your partner, like, trying to be friends, and that can break down, for some people. Adrienne and I, that's one of the things that became clear to me, that the friendship is important as the marriage, and nurturing that part of, what we are, and keeping that alive,
And I want to get back to the how you nurture, but what else do the men say about, I mean, how do you deal with boredom? And it's like Calvin Coolidge's wife said, why don't we have more sex? And he said, because like the rooster. And he said, well, there's a lot of different hens for that rooster to keep him interested. How did people resolve those kind of long-term issues?
Oh, well,
How do people? Or
Well,
how do what?
or I'm wondering if, just starting with his men's group, and then we'll go into people.
yeah.
Did you guys ever talk about that?
No, we never really talked about.
You never talked about sex?
Not to the point of like. No, I would say not particularly, other than in a fooling around way, in a men's group kind of way but not to the point of like, how often do you have sex, or, it's more of the stories, about our relationship or something like that, or, crazy men kind of things that go on where, like who's the boss kind of thing,
Oh.
like,
Who's the boss in our relationship?
you, the boss, I would say, yeah, that I follow your lead most of the time,
Do you agree
But-
with that, Adrienne?
I do agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. So, the main thing for me, the funny part was that, here I am with five gentlemen that I have known for, 30 years, and that each one of us have been with our partner for a long extended period of time, and that these are all people that I'm copacetic with. So there's probably something to do with the people that I know that, we
They're loyal.
experience,
Yeah. Right. So
as a,
you
Yeah.
talked about nurturing a friendship. How does one do that? Because I think most people don't think about, how do I nurture my friendship? They just like doing things together or talking or whatever, but they don't think about nurturing it. How does one nurture it? How do you nurture it?
By trying to find interesting things for us to do through the years, be it going to music festivals, or going on adventures together, and wanting to spend company with each other, doing different things, but also like keeping it to the point in my mind of that we're husband and wife, right? That's one of the roles that we play. But for me, it's really important to remember that there's a friendship involved too, and that it's not this dependent thing. Because at one point I was there, like being really just dependent on husband and wife kind of thing. But remembering that the friendship is really what first brought us together. Wanting to spend time with each other, and so like that.
Yeah, we like each other, and so we want to do things together, and you just remember to keep your partner in mind, because that's what you do with your friends. You want to spend time with them, and you are kind to them, and you get them gifts, and you think about them, and you support them, and just show up, for your husband or your wife, just like you would any friend that you have.
Some of the couples that I've interviewed who have long-term marriages are feeling like they've lost their sexual spark. It's like not so interesting anymore. Do you have any advice for them? Because they asked for what do we do about this?
Yeah. Well, there's two ways I can answer that, because I can answer that as a couple, like well, what did Jerry and I do, or I can talk as a therapist, and different ways that I work with my clients on those issues, because you have to really work with people and show up for them where they are, right? So for instance, in therapy, if I have a couple and they both want to, like, maybe say the wife doesn't have any much sexual desire, or it could be vice versa, because it can be, either one, but but she wants to have more libido. She loves her husband, and she would like to have more sex with him, right? And he wants more, and she wants more. So you kind of, just start there. And generally it goes back to communication, because what I have found is that in the sex department, one of the things that blocks intimacy is withholding information, not telling the truth, not talking openly about what's important. And so over time, a lot of times couples, don't talk about their desires, or don't talk about what makes them angry, or what they want that they're not getting. And so a lot of times it comes back to communicate about what you want, and even like, and talk about sex. Like I mentioned, the dyad communication, right? Talk about sex. Tell your partner what you want. Telling your partner what you want doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. And it's not even asking your partner for what you want. It's just telling your partner what you want, so they know what you want. And getting back to that, again, that friendship and that goodwill, and feeling good, and starting there. And, for us, Jerry and I have been really open, because we have been polyamorous. And so we've had other sexual lovers in our relationship. And so, but, I think we've just been not as adventurous now as we were, before, in the earlier years.
Well, we're old people now.
Yeah. So the desire to be as adventurous and, exploring in different ways, that just kind of, I think, the fire, you have nice warm coals and stuff, so there's still warmth there, and it's interesting, but you don't maybe have such a burning desire, that's so, strong in that arena. So, for us, but we've always been really open, and willing, to please each other, and so we're matched really well, I think, and
How did you deal with jealousy when you were having sexual intimacy with other people. I mean, it seems so hard in terms of human nature not to be jealous.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you are jealous. I mean, that's something you have to deal with, and
Just deal with the jealousy
you find
itself.
a way, to that fire that's in there, and that could be liberating as well as make you crazy. So,
I mean, how did you learn to manage your because I've had jealousy. I think you had a lot stronger jealousy than I did. But how did you learn to manage that? Like to be with it and feel it and learn to be okay with it?
Well, one of the things was I read reading this Pema Chodron book called When Things Fall Apart. To me, it was just one of those touchstones where, the thing of that, when things fall apart, that there's always a new beginning, that there's always, so the point of the jealousy making you to a crazy point, that, just let that be, let it be, and try to, find a way to deal with things instead of anger, to turn it into some kind of liberating thing. It's a complicated thing for me to explain what went on for me.
Did you have rules like we're going to do this together with the other people will be in the same place, or there's rules that you don't have a lot of communication with them outside of the bedroom? Are there framework?
Well, for us, we were into being friends with our lovers, like family friends, so they were people in our lives that we were both friends with and socialized with. But things would come up. Again, you have to communicate, and you do have to have agreements. Like I remember when your one girlfriend started, she started texting. It'd be Saturday morning, and we'd be sleep. It would be our day to sleep in and cuddle and be in bed. And his phone would start going off because she would start texting like early in the morning. And it's like, you need to tell her not to text early in the morning. I do not want to get, and it's, it would actually like wake me up, his phone going off, right, and that kind of stuff. And so that was annoying, and I found it annoying. And he goes, yeah, that kind of annoys me too. And so it would be just, things like that. You just talk about it. That doesn't work for me. That doesn't work well for me at all. How are we gonna fix this? And ask for what you want, and you may get it or you may not. But again, it's like telling your partner what you want, and when there's goodwill there and when there's love there, no relationship you get exactly what you want from your partner. But in a good relationship, I think most of the time you're wanting to please your partner and take care of their heart and make sure they're happy.
Did you start out your relationship with an open relationship, or was there a period when you went into it, or how has it developed in terms of your own relationship?
Well, when we were getting married, Adrienne basically said that she didn't want to be monogamous. That we would going into this with, that kind of openness, and it didn't happen right at first, because we were like new relationship energy, whatever you want to, that term, that, that bonding thing being really tight, but then all of a sudden things morphed into something else, it just kind of happened. It wasn't like,
I think we talked really openly from the very beginning when we first got together about being really open and actually not being monogamous. But we fell so deeply in love and we're so enamored with each other. And like Jerry said, that new relationship energy, theoretically, it was all theoretical because we weren't really interested in being with anyone else because we were just, so into each other. But then when we were going to get married, I do remember when that came up for me, it was like, what does this mean now if we get married? Like, I don't like the idea of like never having another lover, like this means that we don't have to be monogamous, right? Just because we're getting married. And so when we'd been together long enough that we, were more interested in having experiences with other people, we did start out just by doing, exploring together. Right. Yeah. So we'd explore together and have sexual experiences with other people together.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. When you first met, was it love at first sight, or how did you first meet each other?
Well, for me, I was still married at the time, working at the recycling center where I worked. And Adrienne came in one day. And I was all about giving her personal service and, you kind of thing. And then didn't see her for a while. You had moved back into town around in the 80s.
84, I moved back, yeah.
Yeah. So you were not part of my crowd, basically. One thing led to another. But then it came down to I had broken up with my wife at the time, and I was playing a gig with one of the bands that I was in, and Adrienne was there dancing around, and it's like, oh, there she is. It's that same woman. So I went up to her and said, you want to go out?
Settle.
I don't know if you said yes or...
You asked me for my phone number.
Oh, asked for your phone number.
Yeah.
And you gave it to me.
And I gave it to you.
Yeah. So then, I called and we dated for the first time. And it was at that point where it was like, I was pretty much enamored, But I wouldn't say like it was like love at first sight. It was like, wow, this person is exciting.
Attraction at first sight.
Yeah, attraction. Yeah.
What did you think when you recycled with Jerry?
Well, I was in a bit of a different situation. I mean, I was very much attracted to him from the get-go also. But I was in love with someone else. I mean, I was in a long-term relationship. It's kind of funny because I was in a relationship with my youngest son's father, and we'd been together, I don't know, 8 years at the time, or 10 years. I don't remember exactly, but it was, the only thing that relationship really had going for it was the fact that we had great sex and a child together. But
Those
it wasn't
powerful.
Yeah, but it wasn't a good relationship. And I had actually, the night I went out dancing, when Jerry asked me out, I had been going through, separating from him, trying to separate from him. And we had been in a monogamous relationship, and I had told him, I'm not going to be monogamous with you anymore. And we didn't live together. He always kind of kept his distance from me to a certain extent. And, but we'd been trying to kind of break up, and I'd been trying to break up with him. And, I spent that night crying all night long out on the couch in my apartment and just crying. And when I stood up in the morning, I just felt like my heart just kind of dropped into my stomach. It was this real visceral feeling. And it was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with that relationship. And you have those moments of clarity where you're really done. And I was, but you still aren't really done. You still keep doing. But anyway, but I had this idea that I was going to be single because I had never been single in my life. I mean, since I was 16 years old, I have never not been in a relationship. So I really planned on being, a single woman for, a while. And I really wanted that. That's what I thought I wanted. But I went out dancing that night and Jerry asked me out. So I really wasn't ever a single woman, but I was still caught up in that relationship. And and so of course, when he saw me going out with Jerry and all of this, he started showing up for me in a way that I'd always wanted him to all those years, and he wanted to be with me, and and so I was kind of going back and forth. At one point, I told you I was going to try to make it work, with him. I told Jerry that, but we were already hooked on each other. So, yeah, I think we fell in love pretty quickly.
People say that we tend to repeat our parents' pattern or do the opposite, but we kind of react to, like ducks, we imprint on what we know as little ones. So, Jerry, how did your first wife reflect your growing up observation of your parents?
Well, I would say, back in those days, I probably jumped into things quicker than I actually knew who that person was. That, and then to, I'm trying to put when I first got together with her, I was seeing 3 different people. And she got pregnant, and I was looking at that point to, get out of that thing that I was in, all of that, and be with a person. So we decided to have, the baby, and then we got married a few years after that, So, it wasn't a really mature decision. I wasn't making very mature decisions until I met Adrienne. 3 kids in.
Well, was your relationship with Jackie, though, was it related to your parents in any way that you could?
That I wanted to be a parent. I mean, that was one of the things that, I was 25 years old, and it just seemed like it was time for me to, if I was going to be a parent, and she was willing to be a parent with me. So that was kind of the impetus for that relationship, and I guess that's it, that she wanted to be a parent. So we had 3 children together, and, but then, that whole thing frayed apart due to many, many different circumstances, that happened. And it turned out to be it was definitely that thing where, as time moved on, we went in different directions, we went in different directions, and I needed to get out of that relationship, and I didn't know how it was going to happen until she left me.
That made it easy.
And it was a drug-fueled, I mean, this was back in the mid-'80s, and a lot of drugs were involved, and, it was not a healthy, it turned into a really unhealthy situation for my children and everything else, and, so any relation to my parents through that, my mom was a real straight arrow, and my dad died when I was 15, so I didn't really even know my dad, except for when I was young, and my mother was so straight,
Did she remarry?
She remarried, yeah, to Italian gentleman, another Italian gentleman, Mr. Benny Fusco, Benito Fusco, up in Schenectady. So, but my mother was a pistol. She was like, I had to move 3,000 miles away to get along with my mother. She loved me dearly when I was gone.
So what you learned from your first marriage is to be more thoughtful and not to rely on drugs.
Exactly. Yeah. Adrienne kind of saved me from the lifestyle that I was into. I was looking to get out of it somewhere.
Well, you were already out of it,
Yeah.
but not for a long time, not for very long.
No,
And
I
then-
had changed what I wanted to do with myself. But, Adrienne was like a life preserver in some ways to me. Like, she went to the Church of Religious Science, and it was just like something else for me to, and my ex-wife would call her goody two-shoes. And it's like, yeah, that's it. That's what I need in my life right now is, someone to, just the change. I need a change,
Would
and
you
it's my life.
would you call your mother goody two shoes?
My mother a goody two shoes. Yes and no.
Well, I am so not like his mother, but she would be a goody two shoes in some ways, I guess.
Yeah. In her.
I wasn't really a goody two shoes.
No.
His ex-wife just viewed me as one, although I really wasn't a goody two shoes.
No.
But you weren't a druggie.
I wasn't a druggie, no.
That's probably the main point of that.
That was kind of the scene, right? Musicians did drugs and had lots of groupies. Was
Yep.
the scene.
Yep. And that was the life I was living, even through that marriage, my first marriage, that we were on the road a lot with the band, for months at a time, and, all crazy stuff went on,
Drugs and groupies, that's a dangerous combination.
and going from place to place, all over the Western United States we traveled, But I was sick of that life, I was sick of,
Just a second. I'll be right back here. I'll be right back.
Okay. What about Adrienne's parents? What do you know about them and how her first
Well,
got
her dad was had died by the time we got together, but her mom was very close to me. And one of the things she'd always say to Adrienne, when something was wrong, to call Jerry. That I would come in and I was like, if she needed a TV, she couldn't get a certain her satellite work, her cable working, or different things, that I would come in and fix them. And she was very kind to me and generous, and her mom was a real nice lady.
My mom was a goody two shoes.
Yeah.
My mom was really she was way more of a goody two shoes than your mom, I think.
Yeah.
My mom definitely was a goody two shoes.
So what did you learn, or what did you repeat or do the opposite of from your parents' relationship with your son's dad and Jerry?
I was completely opposite of my mother, and I never knew my dad because my mother left my dad when she was pregnant with me, and he moved back to New York. I did meet him when I was 18 years old, but so excuse me. So I never really knew about their relationship. I did have a stepdad for a while, who was just a very abusive guy, and my mom left him too. But she was with him for maybe only 4 years, 3 or 4 years. But my mother was very shy and very reserved, and she was a Christian and a very nice woman, and also, but really cared like what the neighbors thought. And I was like her. I always called myself her shadow child, right? Like, we lived in a neighborhood like over by In Motion Fitness in Chico on Karen Drive with a big picture window. and I would like get out of the shower and I'd like walk through the house naked in front of the picture window, and I didn't care who saw me or what, and my mother would be mortified and she'd always be pulling the drapes shut, and I'd be sunbathing topless in the backyard, when I was a young teen. And so from the very get-go, from the time I was a little girl, my mother really struggled to she loved me, and I always knew she loved me, but my brother, hid anything bad he did. And so she thought he was a goody two-shoes. And my little sister was like her mini me. And so I was like I was a wild child. And my mother didn't really know what to do with me. And so I see no relation to any of my partners with my mother, frankly.
Except that you picked partners who weren't conformists.
Who weren't conformists. Yeah, I guess. But so opposite of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Did you have kids together, or the four you had four that you raised?
No, I had 6 and he had 3, so we had 9.
You had
together.
6?
6 kids.
With different men, or who were the?
My eldest had one father, the 4 in the middle had one father, and then my youngest had one father. So I had 3 different dads. The 2 on the 2 ends were different, and then all the others, the 4 in the middle, were the same. So
we figured 9 was enough.
You think?
Yeah. We did not need to have a baby together. We raised him. I mean, his eldest son, when he moved out, like they were living together, the 2 of them, and when we moved in together, he moved out on his own. He was 18, and he moved out on his own when Jerry and I moved in together. But there was a while where, we had a lot of kids in the house, and then a couple of my kids ended up going to Hawaii, where their dad lived, and grew up their teenage years mostly, or at least one of them was there. But for a while, we had a whole bunch of them there, and then Jerry's oldest daughter, a couple of our girls that were home, got pregnant and had babies at 16, and one of them moved out and got married, and one of them lived at home with us with a grandbaby. Yeah, so we were doing crazy kid stuff for many years. We did not need another one.
Well, the grandbaby was kind of like your baby.
Well, she lived with us for a year, but we didn't take care of her. Her mama took care of her. She was a grandbaby. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she did actually become our baby. Really, because we've raised her a lot of her life. And she is now the mother of 2 kids. She's the eldest, and we have 2 great grandbabies from her.
Wow. So
we have 17 grandchildren.
Oh my goodness. So that's a strain on a relationship to have that many children, just the demands of caring for everybody, not to say anything about the emotional triangles and whatever. So what got you through those years of parenting so many kids?
A lot of yoga. Breathing exercises, and trying to stay centered through the storm, that would arrive at times, and the bond between the both of us, and leaning on each other through when things would get crazy, which they did, through the year, through that period of time. We had 6 of them living in the house with us or something, the 2 girls sneaking out the window in the middle of the night, and getting called by the police to go pick them up somewhere, or wrestling on the floor with the boys, or it's like
It was,
But we always, again, that there was this bond between the both of us that no matter what came up, we tried to be there for each other,
and we loved each other's kids, so, I mean, we did not have, issues like with blended families that a lot of people have. I mean, even though it was tough and it kind of drove us
the
crazy.
kids all got along with each other.
Yeah,
Wow.
the kids all got
They were
along.
like a gang.
Well, yeah, and your kids, Jerry's kids, were more mild mannered than mine.
I'm hearing a wild child theme here.
Yeah, we had a lot of wild. Yeah, my children were all wild children.
Like
They
their
were all
mother.
like their mother. Yep. Yeah, his kids were not. His kids were very sweet, actually. they were very. I mean, Kara was, Kara was a little
everything
crazy.
she did was behind your back.
She was still very sweet. She just did a lot of shit behind your back. But they were good and respectful, and they didn't ever act out. Mine acted out.
Mm-hmm.
How did you organize feeding them all? I mean, that's a lot of work just to feed and clothe and wash that many hungry mouths.
Lots of big pots. Jerry would cook lots of big pots of pasta.
Yeah, I took over like cooking for an army.
I went back to grad school, so he became the cook.
Yeah, she was going to San Francisco State and San Francisco and taking off, and then I'd be left alone.
With 6 kids. Wow.
Lock myself in the bedroom and by myself
Well,
until all hell broke loose,
I
and
was-
then I'd have to go out.
I was never gone that long, really.
Yeah,
That's
just a few
but
hours.
really, but we did go to family therapy at one point. We drug all the kids in. We all went, and that was one of the things that we did. Some was it Gestalt stuff, but they had the kids and it was funny how several of the kids did this in drawings, and I can remember the therapist having the kids place everyone, like
With little figures.
well, no, actually with us they
Like Virginia Satir.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly, with Virginia Satir, and they would put Jerry way off because he would go and hide in the bedroom. And that was an issue for us in the early days. I remember I hadn't remembered that, but that was an issue because it would be he'd cook dinner, for everyone, and then he'd disappear, and I would be out in the house with all the kids, and he would be in the bedroom, and that became an issue, and he recognized it when it came up in therapy, and then we started talking about it, and then when the kids positioned him, I'd be in the middle of everyone, and he'd be way off to the side. It was so he stopped hiding in the bedroom after that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my physical and mental health.
Well, you're probably more introverted. I mean,
I am an introvert person. Yeah,
so the introverts need time alone.
when shit would get to a certain level of gathering steam, then I would be called out of the bedroom to be the enforcer. So then I said, then I had to be you, and you, and get Jersey,
Because he has that, even though he's such a mellow guy, he has that voice, where he could be very Jersey-like and scary.
Well, my son's friends used to be afraid of me because the way I talked. Like, what are you talking about? Forget about it, hey! They used to think I was like a mafia guy or something. Because that's what you knew from TV. Guys who talk like me, they're dangerous.
Did you give the kids chores? I mean, did they do dishes and clean and stuff, or because
They had chores, and sometimes they would get done, and sometimes they wouldn't.
Right.
I mean, Angelina was about the only one who was really
She
would always do whatever was assigned to her,
Yeah.
because that's the kind of person that she was.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody else, it was
Yeah. We're just.
And what were the consequences if you didn't do your chores or you came in too late or whatever the rule was?
I don't even remember. Do you?
No, I don't remember. I remember that when we would go on trips that we would pay them so much.
Well, we did that for one trip.
Yeah, for
And-
being.
We had the best family vacation.
And you paid them to be good?
Well, what we did, yes, we paid them to be good. And so the way, so they were clued in exactly how it was going to work the night before. So we're all going to leave in the morning. So this is going to start, we're going to wake you up at 6 o'clock in the morning because we want to be out the door by 8. So starting with 6 o'clock, we're going to pay you $1 an hour, each one of you, because, and then that's going to be your spending money on the trip. So don't ever, and so it was really smart because it was like, don't ever ask us to buy you anything. I mean, we're going to pay for the meals and we'll pay for the big ticket items, if we're going here or there. But any souvenirs or any snacks or anything you want like that, you're going to buy that yourself. So just buy whatever you want with your money. You have to figure it out. Which saved us from ever being, how kids will beg for stuff.
Yes.
And so that didn't happen.
That's a good idea.
And so it was like, but every hour you're going to get paid $1. So I was stocked. I had dollar bills, like I had it all there. So because I wanted to reinforce it every hour. Here's your dollar, here's your dollar, here's your dollar. And so one of our wild kids, my son, Jaya, he was always the worst and the instigator. And I guess there was only 3 of them we took on this trip because it ended up, Shama was pregnant at the time and she was going to come, but then she kind of started, she ended up staying home, and her midwife didn't want her to take the trip. And so she didn't take the trip. So we had 3 of them, but we just thought, what are we doing? This is going to be miserable in the car with all these kids. We have to come up with a plan. And so that next morning, it's like, so if you do anything at all, like here's the thing, if your sibling starts annoying you or bugging you, don't fight with them. You can come to one of us and just say, hey, such and such is doing this. Can you help me out here? If you need to do that. But if you fight and engage, then you're not going to get your dollar. And then I'll tell you, you've just lost your dollar. And then if you complain and fight about not getting your dollar, then you won't get it for the next hour. Right? And so we wake the kids up, we're going, my son Jaya starts being a pain, and so it's like, you're not, you've and so anyway, he was a pain. And so then we got in the car. Actually, we got in the car, and that was the first time I had to pay him. And I turned around, and I gave one of them $1, and I gave the other one $1. And I said to him, you're not getting $1 because, you blah, blah, blah. And so, then he threw a fit, and I said, well, you're not going to be getting the $1 the next time either, so just keep that in mind. And so then the second payment came out. Here's your $1. Here's your $1. Now those kids had $2 and he had nothing. And I just remember he rolled down the window and he just put his face and he just was so furious. But after that, but he didn't say anything. And after that, none of them lost $1 the whole trip. Or I think once when we were in Santa Cruz on the boardwalk, we let them run off and do stuff, and they were supposed to meet us back someplace, and they were late. And I think we took $1 from each of them when they didn't make it back in time. And they were fine with it. But that was the only time they lost any money. So yeah, that was a huge success. And plus, they never bugged us. They never cried for anything. They, some of them would spend their money. Angelina saved every penny till we got to San Francisco, and she bought some stuff she was wanting, like right before we came home. And we had a really, really good vacation, didn't we? I can't see where this is, but we had a very good family vacation. Yeah, that one worked really well.
What have you done for the couple bonding over the years, like date night or trips alone, or how have you nurtured the couple in the face of all those demands?
Well, Jerry and I never have had to have a date night because we're really good about having fun and doing what we want, so that was, I mean, we've always done a lot of that. So we never had to like make sure we scheduled it.
Plus, me playing gigs. So I'm always a party. I'm always like at a party or going to a party or playing at a party or playing at a club or, so for 50 years, that's what I've done. This is the first time since March where, it's all just died, but so.
And I don't really go to his gigs so much anymore, but when we were young and in love, we did that a lot, even with all the kids and stuff like that. I mean, we were like, we had found love. We were, in our 40s. I was 39 when we met, and Jerry was 43, and we weren't going to let that pass us by, So, and at the time, and he was always having gigs, and there were always parties. And our friends were always there. So that was a lot of our social stuff. Even if he was on stage, I would be visiting with all my friends and he'd be on stage and we'd be hanging out during his breaks. And then after the gig, we would be doing stuff. And so there was always, stuff going on for us. It was never an issue to not be bored.
So what were the areas of conflict then over the years, and how did you resolve it?
What's an area of conflict that you think we've had over the years? I can think of one.
Well, let me hear your conflict.
You tell me.
No, I need to hear from you first.
Chores. Work around the house.
Yeah, okay.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, that works for me. I mean, that I'm a lazy person, basically. And, I've gotten better since we have, I never wanted to like own a house because, an apartment or, a rental or something, I didn't have to be responsible for fixing this or fixing that, because I'm not really kind of a fix-it guy. I'm an artist, I like to say, I'm a musician.
He did not know how to use a shovel when we got together. Literally, the man did not know how to use a shovel.
I could use a shovel.
You could not.
I only hit myself in the head with it, that's all.
Yeah. I did ask him to dig a hole for me once. Like this is real. Does this story embarrass you?
No.
I did ask him to dig a hole for me, and then I walked off, and then I turned around, and I was watching him for a while, and it's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm digging a hole, and it's like...
He didn't put his foot on the shovel, huh?
He did not put his foot on the shovel. He did not know how to do that.
New Jersey, I guess you don't dig holes.
No, we don't have dirt in New Jersey. Jersey City, anyway.
It was pretty funny. That was pretty funny watching that. But I think, Jerry is great. We have 2 Airbnbs now, and he's still the cook. He cooks for me. He takes care of me. Makes my coffee in the morning. He keeps the kitchen clean. He, works in the Airbnb. I think it's like, I think it was just like giving you your jobs, right? Like, so he knew what he needed to do. So there'd be jobs to do. So he just knew what was his, and then he just does it. I don't think you often, and it's not like I'm a clean freak, because I'm a complete slob too. I'm a slob. I'm more of a slob than you are, really. But
we get along that way. That she's a slob. That it reflects better on me because I'm not as much of a slob.
But I see things that need to be done, that need to get cleaned up, and I see that, and I know where Jerry doesn't really see it so much. So if it's not his job to do it, he doesn't do it just because he doesn't see it.
So is that what you meant by you're the boss? You set out the chores?
Not really. Because that's equitable too. I think it's just.
She's a lot more logical than me. my attachment to any kind of things being logical, I don't really deal in that kind of realm. You know, I'm more flighty and, you know,
Yeah, I think it's just, like I would be the one that would have to say, like, okay, like here's all the chores that need to get done, and like really, this is what has to happen. Like, what do you want to do? Like, I'll do this and you'll do that, and just so there's a plan, right? But with me being the boss, I think that that's more related to I care more about a lot of things. I care more about most things than Jerry cares about. I mean, meaning that he's real flexible about stuff. Like it used to be, like we used to go out and eat a lot. There was a time like when we always were just like going out to dinner, and neither one of us were wanting to cook. So we went out to eat a lot, and he would say, "Where do you?" And he'd say, "Where do you want to go?" And I'd never know where I wanted to go, and he didn't really care. He just wanted to eat, because I wouldn't think about food like that. I'd be like, oh gosh, he's asking about food again, like where we're going to eat, and so he would have to name all the places, and I would say no, so he'd start naming restaurants, and I would go, no, 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 no. Okay, let's eat there, because he didn't really care. He just wanted to go eat. And I would be more particular about where I'd want to eat. And I think that kind of reflects a lot of how we do stuff.
Well, also, at the job, I had the same job for 40 years. And, I was the boss a lot of the time there, where it was always, Jerry, what are we going to do? So.
Oh, when you came home, you didn't want to do that.
I didn't want to be, I don't, there's a lot more responsibility, If you told me what to do, like you say, if there was some plan for me to do something, then maybe I would feel like doing it.
He likes me. He likes me to tell him what to do. It's just like with the Airbnb. I mean, he has all his jobs out there, but I had to tell him, this is how you make the bed. And I'd be really specific. Like, this is how you put the sheet on. And then this sheet has to be turned over, and you have to pull it down this far. And I'd be like really specific, because I like the Airbnb, like super neat and super clean and super perfect. And I'd have to show him exactly how to do it. But then once I've taught him, then he just does it, and he knows how to do it.
I make a damn good bed.
He makes a damn good bed. I do not control him in the kitchen at all. He's on his own. He just cooks for us and does his own thing, and he's very creative. But I just think a lot of things, like, if the sink in the bathroom is dirty, or the toilet is dirty, or something's dusty, he won't ever see that. I'll have to say, could you clean the sink in the bathroom? Could you clean the toilet? Could you do that? Because that's the kind of stuff that you don't really notice much on your own.
Do you have any grandkids live with you, or are you child-free now?
Did, but we're child-free.
How many grandkids did you have living with you?
Well, Emily, a good portion of her life. I mean,
from 13.
From 13 on, she basically lived with us.
19.
13 to 19, and then we had another granddaughter living with us for a couple years. Well, a year, and then a couple. Anyway, a few, 2 or 3 years.
And my daughter lives here for a while.
And his daughter lived with us.
I mean, we haven't had much time where we weren't living with one of our children, grandchildren, or great grandchildren.
Yeah, almost never.
Yeah.
Like really, but. Now, because of COVID, nobody can come. They're locked out.
Well, we did have one in there.
We did have one even here, but she came with her mom, and they moved back from Texas, and she did stay in our bedroom for a few months.
How many bedrooms do you have in your house?
3.
Where did all the 6 kids sleep?
Oh, we didn't live here. We moved here in 2013, and we had we had 3 granddaughters living here for a while in our house, in this house, and we put them all in one bedroom because I have a craft room, an extra bedroom, and it's like you guys are all going to share that front room because mostly there was 2 of them, but then a third one moved in. Yeah, we just made them all cram up in the front room. It's like,
Don't get too comfortable.
don't get comfortable. Get your shit together and go away.
For some couples, money's an issue because one's a spender and one's a saver. How have you managed the investing, saving, money, spending category?
She's in charge of the money, you know. I mean, back in the day, when we first got together, it was she had her money and I had my money.
Right.
We still, I would give her so much of my paycheck every month to help pay for the rent or whatever like that. But, when it comes to actually running the finances, I mean, she's way smarter than me.
Or more interested.
More interested and smarter.
I'm the spender and the saver. I'm the one that does both.
But at least you have a saver part.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't really buy anything except for, a book or a CD or a drum.
I mean, sometimes, I literally will like pull up our finances and the different accounts and everything and say, hey, Jerry, this is how much money we have. This is what we have here. This is what we have there, and he, will go, oh, cool. But we've never argued or fought over finances, or like I said, he's really easygoing, so it's kind of, it's very easy for me just to kind of do my thing, and he does his thing too. I mean, we just kind of mesh pretty easy together, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you believed in karma, what would you say karmically brought you together and what you've learned from each other?
Well, I told you that, my former marriage and relationship that, I've know that I could have made it if I would have stayed with that lifestyle and the way things were for me. And I was, I had to claw myself back into like the human race, basically. I was, and karmically, that she saved me in some way from myself. That I was looking to invent a new me. To be more than what I had been, and so that was like my karma, that I could have remained where I kept going down that deep dark hole, or pulled myself out of it. And through this relationship, is that there was a way for me to put my focus on something, and and like I said, kind of reinvent myself.
Sweet. Adrienne, what about you? What have you learned from Jerry?
Well, I think probably what I've learned the most, or what my lesson, I guess my lesson has been, is to be kind, to whatever's going on, whether it's easy to be kind when you get what you want, right? But it's harder to be kind if you're, angry and you're not getting what you want. And so I think that that's been, it is definitely, my practice, and what I try to be aware of is just to, let go of my attachment when things don't go my way, and to be kind.
What have you done differently from your 3 previous relationships where you had kids with those 3 men?
What have I done differently?
Yeah, what have you learned from them?
Well, I think, the first one, when I was just so young and there just was so little awareness in that one, it would be hard for me to say. I got bored in that relationship very, very quickly, and just needed to get out of it and move on. I had a baby and I'm done, because I was very young too. I was 16 when I ended up giving birth at 17, but I was very young. But the other two relationships, I think you said this to another question a while back, but maybe it was a similar question. I think I'm more responsible, self-responsibility, being aware of my own self, because I think I was so focused on not having my needs met in my other 2 relationships that there was a lot of emotional immaturity there, and I just wanted, neither of those relationships were good or healthy, and with Jerry, I think he just has shown up for me so much, just shown up and is there for me, and is committed. I think it's that commitment to be responsible himself and be emotionally mature and show up for the relationship. I think that has allowed me to just be responsible myself and to be committed to being a better person and to being a kind person.
So you've been kind of foundational for each other, but in a way that creates more space. It's interesting. So it's both grounding but expansive.
Yeah, supporting each other as individuals, just really allowing each other just to be who we are, and but we really like each other. I think that besides, we love each other, but we really, like each other and appreciate each other, and we like being loved too. I mean, it's kind of like that, because we're really very joined at the hip, as much as we're individuals and can go off and do our thing and have our own thing. We're also we like being together, like the way we're sitting now, on top of each other, we do this all the time. This is just how we kind of live a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much longer are you going to keep on working? Where do you see yourself, say, 10 years from now?
I'm a retired person, except for, like I said, we have the Airbnb business going. So,
Yeah, Well,
you're way busier than me, right now. And all my gigs have dried up, and we're not rehearsing. And when I retired, that was my thing. It's like, I'm just gonna play music now. And I was in 4 or 5 different bands and playing this gig and that gig, and constantly. And then the COVID thing hit, and so
yeah, that's been sad and hard on you. Yeah. And I'm 4 years younger than him, and so you retired a couple years ago, right? Or
2 years.
2.5 years
2.5
ago.
years.
He retired 2.5 years ago. I actually retired from Butte after being there 21 years. I retired in June, but I was always there part-time, right? I'd work 24 hours a week. And I retired in June, but I have my private practice. So we have 2 Airbnbs that we can still take time off anytime we want from them, right? We can just close it down and travel and do what we want. So which we do, but they're open a lot, and it's good income, and it keeps us really, really busy.
Even during COVID?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We dried up for a month, and then it opened back up. And
Oh, wow.
I mean, in the fight, yeah, because people come. I mean, I've even had, you have people coming for COVID, working, doing different things, and people coming for the fires, and there's just been a lot of reason for people. I mean, and now people aren't flying, so they're traveling through from Portland to LA and staying because they're driving instead of flying. So, yeah. So we're still very busy
Oh, good.
with
What
the Airbnbs.
what are there like themes in terms of what your clients come to you for? What it seems like people kind of attract a set of, like they
Yeah.
deal with anxiety or depression or something. What do you tend to attract in clients?
Sexuality and communication. I mean, probably sexuality. I mean, I work with a lot of people with alternative relationship styles. So a lot of polyamorous people, come to me because, I have experience with that, and a lot of therapists don't, so I have clients, when I was seeing, because everything's on Zoom now, but when I was seeing clients, so I can see clients from anywhere now, but I'd have clients come from Redding and Sacramento, to Chico. Then they would drive here to see me just because they couldn't find therapists, that knew anything about that. And I've had a lot of transgender clients and a lot of LGBTQ. So a lot of, folks that are dealing with, alternative relationship issues, or, just transgender issues, that come up. And I have worked with quite a few transgender people. But as far as other individuals and couple, is sexuality mostly. And then that, even if they don't know it, it comes to either sex in the relationship, or people just having sexual difficulties in and of it. And there might even be single people, that have a lot of issues that they want to deal with. But with couples and sex, again, that ends up being more communication than anything else.
Do you find that couples who think they have lost interest in each other sexually, it's like bored, not interested, want to not have sex with you ever again? Do you find that can be rekindled sometime?
Well, yeah, Ben, I think it's rekindling the intimacy, as I mentioned, getting them to communicate. But a lot of times, what I found, I mean, probably the most common thing I see with couples, with that, is that women stop being physically affectionate with their husbands. Like, they stop touching them at all. They don't want to kiss. They just kind of keep them at arm's length, because they feel pressured into having sex. And it's kind of like that. If I give him an inch, he'll want a mile. And so they don't want to encourage them, even though they would love to hug and kiss their husbands and have more physical affection and closeness. They're afraid to. So they've gotten into this pattern of, keeping them away, because if they let them in, then they're kind of sex starved. But the men, really, when you come right down to it, they're more affection starved than anything when it comes right down to it. So, I'll talk to them about, letting the wife be the initiator for sex, and just, backing off that, and like let her open up, to her partner for affection, without getting grabby, to always want more. And so then, if they're the ones that are in charge, women are generally more willing and open to having sex. Because what I find is, a lot of women, even though they're not feeling a really strong desire to have sex with their partners, they want to have sex with them because they love them and they want them to be happy, right? But if the guy's grabbing at her and mad, like men get mad, like it's their wife's duty to have sex with them, and you kind of have to nip that in the bud, because it's like, she's never going to have sex with you if you are demanding it and getting mad, right? Because you're not getting it. And so it's just working with those. I always am telling men, it's a beautiful thing. You love your wife, you're attracted to her, you want to have sex with her. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is a beautiful thing. It's a good thing. But she doesn't owe you sex. So you have to, it's just like changing the way they think about it. And allowing the women to open up. And again, sometimes it's the man than the woman that wants more, and the man's closed down, because it happens like that too. But but it's communication. And when they still love each other, like if they start listening, they really start listening to their partner, they start liking them more and feeling more kind-hearted. And so, comes back to that communication.
I remember Masters and Johnson technique was don't have sex, just like give back rubs and touch and explore without allowing yourself to go into intercourse mode.
Sensate focus.
Sensate focus.
I have a lot of couples do sensate focus. Yeah. Because a lot of times, sometimes it's just that, men have a really lousy technique and they don't please their wives, and they're not getting turned on, and there's no foreplay. And so these women are completely dried up because their partners don't know how to touch them. So the sensate focus is really good for that.
Do you find that those men are willing to learn?
Yeah, almost all of them are.
I guess if they come to you, that's it kind of selects for someone who's willing to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking of a lot of boys learn about sex, like masturbation contests with other boys who can ejaculate the fastest kind of thing. It's the opposite of what you need to have be a good partner.
Yeah, indeed.
So if you were going to, the last question, give advice to a young couple, same sex, different sex, trans, whatever, who wants to they don't want to get divorced, what advice would you give them in a nutshell?
Well, try to stay friends. The friendship is as important in a marriage as, and communicating with each other, having fun with each other, making that a point. Keeping the romance alive in some way. For me, it's like, to bring flowers or make sure you have a card for an occasion, whatever that might be, to show your appreciation to the person, that you appreciate them and not taking them for granted. I think that's important. Never take that person for granted.
Yeah, I'd say that was pretty important. Yeah, and the friendship. I'd say the same thing, keep the friendship alive, go back to the friendship. It's like, what made you fall in love with this person? What did you like about them? And because generally most couples have a friendship in the beginning, and so it's getting back to that. You get all caught up in all the mundane, crazy issues of life, and all the ways, whatever it is that you want, you're not getting it, and kind of that goes to the wayside. So keep the friendship alive, and don't take each other for granted, for sure.
All righty.